So during the reports, found out by people like Fightful Select and PW Insider and others, one of the ideas that's being floated around because of what's going on right now, because of the shakeup, the massive shakeup, to the WrestleMania main event scene, kind of pivoting, as of right now from what was originally planned, because reports are that, if it wasn't for, basically the Punk injury that, and some other, things like Brock Lesnar being removed because of his involvement with the McMahon scandal and so on, that basically the plan was from the get-go was to do Roman and Cody 2 and then Punk and Rollins, as the main events that close out both night 1 and 2. Rollins and Punk closing out night 1, Rhodes and Reigns closing out night 2. But then Punk got injured. Lesnar, who could have probably been a potential alternative for Rollins. They haven't said anything there, but them mentioning the fact that, hey, his plans kind of, got derailed and everything because he was supposed to take on Dominic Mysterio at Elimination Chamber and then challenge Gunther for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. To me, they wouldn't bring up his name if he probably wasn't an alternative idea for Rollins, to face at WrestleMania for the world title, due to the Punk injury. But, that's not going to happen now because of, again, his involvement or his possible involvement. But getting back to what I was saying, one of the ideas that's floating around and is possibly a strong, is possibly very strong in, reality of happening, is the fact that, there is discussion that because of this change of plans, this possible pivot in the direction we're going in of Rock Roman for the undisputed title, and then, Rhodes Rollins for the world title, the possible direction they're planning to go in is for the winners of both night 1 and 2 to fight each other at SummerSlam to unify both championships. And when this got mentioned, obviously it got a lot of backlash itself because people are like, well, why would they do that? Why would they want to unify these titles, if they just, brought this World Heavyweight Championship or this, I guess you can say rebooted version of the World Heavyweight Championship, this, amalgamation, if you will, of the big gold belt. Why would they bring that back, a year ago, or by the time the unification match would happen, a little over a year ago, just to unify it once again with the WWE Championship? Because historically that had been done before. I think the last time it was done was back in essentially the early to mid 2000s. Oh, not 2000, but the early to mid. Yeah, it was the 2000s. The first time was 2001 with Vengeance, Jericho, of course, Chris Jericho. And then the other time was Randy Orton and John Cena around, 2010, not 2010, but it's like 2011, 2012, if you will, 2011, 2012, I believe. Or 2000, was it 2012? No, it was 2013. Yeah, 2013 is when they did that, 2013. So basically, it was like almost 11 years ago. 11 years ago when, upcoming this year, at this year's WrestleMania. Well, actually, it was 11 years. It was actually 10 years ago, like a couple months ago, I think around TLC time, that they unified them. But the point I'm getting at, the reason they did that is because they felt they didn't need two world champions that were just appearing on both brands instead of staying on their own brands, if you will. The other reason people seem to forget as to why the World Championship was made was mainly because USA Network was, like a lot of fans and even the talent, was sick and tired of Roman Reigns essentially not always being around when he should. Because Roman basically put in his contract, yeah, I don't work Mondays. I'm not working Mondays, period. So that kind of, derailed any plans USA would hope for to showcase, WWE's top guy, their top champion. So they basically went to WWE and said, hey, you guys got to give us a world champion. We don't have a world champion. We want a world champion. Which is why, Vince allowed Triple H to bring back the amalgamation that we see now of the big gold belt, the World Heavyweight Championship. But now, if, rumors and reports are to be believed, and nowadays with wrestling, you don't know what to believe anymore. It could all be smoke and mirrors just to throw people off, to surprise even the insiders, if you will. Report courtesy of PW Insider, I think even Fightful Select picked up on this, and even WrestleVille's picked up on it. The report is that one of the major ideas being discussed that, as I said, could become a reality is to basically unify these belts at SummerSlam, due to the fact that it will be Cody, who's a full-time competitor, that would be the one walking out of SummerSlam as the Unified Champion. Why, you may ask? Well, you see, Roman apparently is going to take some time off. They don't know how much time he's going to take. Reports are it's going to be 6 months, maybe a year, or whatever the case may be. So if he's going to take time off for that long, what happens in the with the World Championship picture? What happens with the WWE title and maybe the World titles? Like, what happens with if Raw gets via draft, if they do a draft, they get the undisputed champion, and by exchange SmackDown gets the World Champion. It's like, okay, what champion does Raw have if Roman's gone for 6 months to a year, with the championship? Or what champion does SmackDown have if he's still part of that brand? Like, what's the payoff? And obviously, the creative team in WWE is looking at that, and they're saying, hey, we need to fix that. We need to come up with a solution. And I think one of the ideas they're coming up with, which some are cool with, some are not, some are, in the middle, like kind of mixed about it, is to unify them. I mean, let's be honest. The World Heavyweight Championship, this amalgamation of the World Heavyweight Championship that Seth Rollins holds right now, it's a beautiful championship. Don't get me wrong. It is absolutely gorgeous. But there are some things on that championship that remind TKO, that is, and Endeavor, and the higher-ups in WWE, there are certain designs in that championship that remind them of a certain individual and his family. That, of course, being the Lions. In case you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the lion crest on the championships of WWE, whether it's been the WWE, WWF Championship, whether it's been the World Heavyweight Championship, believe it or not, the Silver ECW Championship, they've always had the lion crescent on there that represents the McMahon family, mostly Vince McMahon. So if you're Endeavor, you're WWE, and your TKO Group Holdings, and you are aware of this, what is the one thing you want to do to try to separate yourself from from Vince McMahon in any shape, size, or form, or in any way? What is the one thing you do? The one thing you do basically is you take any representation of him and you remove it. And if unifying the championships and just giving us the WWE Championship, maybe a new undisputed WWE Championship, with a new look and everything, is one way to go, with Cody being the one that's going to carry that banner, then so be it. So be it. And you also got to think about it this way too. If and when Punk comes back, because Punk is scheduled probably to come back by SummerSlam, have a feud with Drew McIntyre, and then build himself to probably win next year's Royal Rumble, you can only imagine that the match between Punk and Rhodes at WrestleMania 41 for the WWE Championship in the main event of Night 2 would be massive. It would be huge. And why? Why, you might ask? Because basically the winner of that match not only becomes champion, of WWE, but it's a win-win for both brands, for both the SmackDown brand on USA and the Raw brand on Netflix. And also, you got to think about this too. Speaking of Netflix, WWE is entering into agreement, a potential decade or a potential decade or 2 decade, I should say, agreement with them. They're entering into this massive agreement with them, to have their show broadcast, or stream broadcast, if you will, streamcast, if you will, live on their platform. And you can only imagine, that WWE is thinking to themselves, well, if we're not going to be part of USA anymore at the end of the year, why do we even need a world championship that they wanted? We don't need that. So they're probably thinking long term, or thinking about not just long term, but they're thinking about the future already. Like, well, Netflix, they're not about the ratings, they're about the numbers, they're about the viewerships and everything. So they probably won't mind if we only have one champion, because he can show up on Raw on Netflix, people can see him there, and then he can show up on USA on SmackDown, and people can see him there. It's a win-win for both streaming and cable television. Period. So to me, that's why this is being proposed. I think it's being proposed because they're looking long term to post USA and future Netflix, with the unification of the championships down the line. Again, I know not a lot of people are going to appreciate hearing this being a possibility, if not a straight out reality. But if this is the direction they got to pivot to because of injuries, certain individuals being in scandals, and said scandals itself kind of overshadowing a lot of press going and build to WrestleMania, and the potential that the current undisputed champion could be gone for up to a year, to me is the best solution. But what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on the possibility of another unification down the line in WWE?